Hey students, this time for ELA, let's talk about the time periods of British literature. So British literature dates back many years and covers different periods that we'll talk about. The first of which is the Anglo-Saxon or Medieval time period. This literature was written in Old English during the 600-year period from 400 AD all the way up to the year 1066 during the Norman Conquest. These works include genres of epic poetry, different sermons, Bible translations, legal works, chronicles, riddles, and many other literary forms. So in all, there's about 400 surviving manuscripts from this time period, and a significant amount of both popular interest works as well as special research during that time period. One of the most well-known and important works of this time period is the epic poem of Beowulf, which many students are required to read. The next time period in British literature is the English Renaissance, which occurred from the years 1066 to the year 1660. Some important writers of this era include the essayist Sir Philip Sidney, the poet Edward Spenser, who wrote The Faerie Queene, and of course the most famous and well-known British author, Shakespeare, writing such works as Hamlet, Macbeth, and King Lear, and many others. The next time period in British literature is called the English Restoration and Enlightenment. This occurred from the years 1660 to around 1750. During the English Restoration and Enlightenment period, John Milton was a famous writer who wrote Paradise Lost, and Jonathan Swift writing Gulliver's Travels. The literary novels we know today definitely gained prominence during this era. One of the most famous was Daniel Defoe's Robinson Crusoe. Next, we have the Romantic or the Romanticism period, and this was around 1750 through the early 1800s. The Romantic period was described as a complex, artistic, and literary intellectual movement, and it originated in the second half of the 18th century in Western Europe, and it gained strength during the Industrial Revolution. It was partly a revolt against the aristocracy, the social and political norms of the age of the Enlightenment, and it was embodied with strong visual arts, music, and literature. Some of the notable authors from this time period include William Blake, a poet who wrote Songs of Innocence and of Experience. Mary Shelley wrote the famous novel of Frankenstein. John Keats, a poet, wrote Ode to the Nightingale and Ode to a Grecian Urn. The next period in British literature was Victorianism, which occurred in the 1800s. Victorianism forms a link and a transition between the writers of the Romantic period and the very different literature of the 20th century. The 19th century saw the novel become the leading form of literature in English. Charles Dickens and the Bronte sisters are leading examples of novelists during this time. So Charles Dickens, author of works as Great Expectations and Oliver Twist, Emily Bronte writing Wuthering Heights, and Charlotte Bronte writing Jane Eyre. And next we have Modernism, which occurred in the 1900s in the British literature period. The term modernism covers a series of reforming movements in art, architecture, music, literature, and all the applied arts during this time period. James Joyce is one of the most prominent writers of this time period. Some of the works he wrote include The Dubliners, A Portrait of an Artist as a Young Man, and Ulysses. So this is just a brief overview of the time periods of British literature, dating back to the Anglo-Saxons in the 600s, all the way up to the modern era of the 1900s. Along with this video, I'll be posting slides and practice pages for you to work on. If you want more information, let me know and I'll post that. And as always, if you want to Zoom with me on this lesson, click on the link in Schoology.